Hello everyone. Today we'll talk on Francis Bacon. In Francis Bacon, we see a mixture of intellectual strength, a literary and scientific man who is devoted to truth for its own sake, and a cold, cunning, calculating, selfish, or morally weak politician who is ready to go to any extent to procure his means. For an introduction's sake, I would like to give you a very brief sketch of his life as such. The little Lord Keeper of Queen Elizabeth at a very young age, a Cambridge student scholar who left the university after 2 years declaring that the whole of the educational system is wrong, labeling Aristotelian system as a childish delusion which produced no fruit in the course of centuries, who took up the study of law and got admitted to the bar. Francis Bacon was quite an ambitious sort of a person who longed for success and higher positions. Of course, he did get what he wished for. He was knighted during the rule of James I. He married a rich lady, Alice Barnham, whose father left her with £200 a year. He became the Attorney General, Lord Chancellor, Viscount St. Albans, etc., etc., etc. In between, he turned out to be a Brutus kind of a fellow who turned away from his friend by assisting in prosecuting Earl of Essex, who did help him in his earlier years. Once he reached the zenith of his success by all kinds of shrewdness, calculative plays, he was charged of bribery and of corrupt dealings, and he became so unpopular with the House of Commons and was deprived of his office and was sentenced to an enormous fine of £40,000 and was imprisoned. But the imprisonment lasted only just a few days, and the fine was somewhat remitted. But the result was that all of his political ambitions, all of his political hopes ended then and there. This is one side of Francis Bacon. Now, our concern is the other side. Of course, during his early years, Bacon did dedicate his time for his literary and scientific accomplishments. Of course, he did publish some works. But it was after withdrawing from public life as such, from the political life as such, that he could dedicate or he could devote his whole life to scientific and literary works. Of course, this was his real calling, which made him the greatest minds in the world, as Pope would call it, the wisest and the brightest. Of course, his political side did exhibit his meanest side. This side did exhibit the wisest and the brightest and the greatest side of Francis Bacon. Bacon wrote history, scientific articles, a scientific novel, and philosophical works. In an age where men were so very busy with romance and philosophy, Bacon insisted that the first aim of education was to make a man acquainted with the natural environment. He turned from books to men, he turned from theory and philosophy to nature and reality. Of course, he did become a martyr of his own experiment when he was driving in a snowstorm one day. He felt like snow could be used as a sort of a preservative instead of salt. What he did was that he went and experimented it with a fowl, as a result of which he fell ill and died afterwards. Now, moving on to a brief sketch of his works. Bacon was a writer who wrote both in Latin and English, but he revered Latin the more. He regarded Latin as the only language worthy of great work. But then, time and world accepted his English works more than Latin ones. We'll talk of his essays, which we have to deal with in detail. But before that, we'll just have a mention of some of his other works. The most important among his works is Instauratio Magna, the great institution of true philosophy, which expounds his philosophical theories. This work, as I told you before, is written in Latin, and it turned out to be an incomplete work. This particular work discarded the greater philosophies of the scholars till that time, and it served as a sort of a complete educational system attempting to bring about practical results instead of useless speculations. In the second part of this work, which is titled Novum Organum, which was published in the year 1620, explains the inductive method of reasoning, which is the foundation of Bacon's philosophy. New Atlantis is a kind of philosophical romance or a scientific novel, perhaps. It describes a utopia as seen by Bacon. It is more often compared to More's utopia, though we find some differences between the way of life described in More's utopia and Bacon's New Atlantis. More's utopia was more Puritan, democratic, simple and social, whereas Bacon's was a bit aristocratic, intellectual, scientific and ordered. The utopian possibilities which Bacon described in this particular work is, when we think now, is no more utopian at all. The history of Henry VII is a historical attempt of Bacon, in which of course he succeeds in providing a calm and dispassionate historical account. The advancement of learning is of course the introductory part of Instauratio Magna, which was written in Latin. Now this is the English version. The advancement of learning is another important work by Bacon, which was published in the year 1605, which contains the substance of most of his philosophy. Now we'll talk on his collection of essays, which is titled Essays, Civil and Moral. This was first published with 10 essays in the year 1597, and because it had a sort of a wide appeal amongst its audience and amongst its readers, that he issued a second edition in 1612 with 38 essays, and the third edition came out in 1625 with 58 essays. Talking about the genesis of this particular essay collection, this work was born out of conversations. It was born out of talks with people, talks that he had with people, where he jotted down brilliant and suggestive things that he heard from others, plus the kind of illuminating thoughts that he had, and he just put it together. The whole of the essays deal with wide variety of topics like truth, like death, religion, envy, revenge, friendship, love, parents, children, marriage, travel, superstition, anger, etc., etc. It talks about everything under the sun, where you feel like reading it on and on. Now, how does he write? Bacon was a writer who did not like vain abstractions. Instead, he favored clear foresight and scientificity by ascertaining from facts to principles. His essays are a sort of bell ringer for future essays, and his thoughts and scientific approach a sort of a clarion for the battle in future. He himself says that, I quote, "I only sound the clarion, but I enter not into the battle." Whatever he did all his lifetime, all the achievements that he had, the scientific, the literary and the philosophical pronouncements that he made was kind of paving a road for future generations. And he is often hailed as the father of English essay. His essays are quite marvelous, pregnant with ideas and thoughts, terse and pithy, crisp, detached, serious and epigrammatic, which reveals a breadth of knowledge and intellect, worldly wisdom. They are quite impersonal and orderly in thought, reflecting on things in a very scientific detachment. They are very brief, richly condensed, they are weighty utterances on men and affairs. He often uses antithetical sentences, and his essays do have the quality of proverbs. They are quite precise, and he does have a clarity of expression. Almost all of his essays do have an abrupt and striking openings. All of his essays are a collection of shrewd observations on how men get on in life, how human nature is all about. Sometimes he does consider certain kinds of things from a moral perspective, from a moral standpoint, which he then fills up with worldly wisdom. Now I'll just wind up this introduction by giving you some lines from some of his essays, through which you get to understand the features of Bacon's essays. Most of the lines that I would be reading are often quoted in different platforms, and most of it have become part of everyday communication. Of course, I'll begin with a line from the essay Of Truth, with which he begins his collection of essays, Civil and Moral. If it be well weighed to say that a man lieth, is as much to say as that he is brave towards God and a coward towards men. Now here is the beginning of his essay of death. Men fear death as children fear to go in the dark, and as that natural fear in children is increased with tales, so is the other. Now this is also the beginning of the essay of revenge. Revenge is a kind of wild justice. Now this is a line which I never would agree with, and I don't know about you, but then yeah, I can just quote it. Wives are young men's mistresses, companions for middle age, and old men's nurses, from his essay of Marriage and Single Life. Now this is from Of Superstition, of course a very good line. It were better to have no opinion of God at all than such an opinion as is unworthy of him. Now at the end of it, I would read a line from Of Studies. Reading maketh a full man, conference a ready man, and writing an exact man. So that was a very small introduction on Francis Bacon. Now in the next video, we'll look at one of his most important essays, Of Studies. Thank you.